As we're still kind of looking at the backdrop of this crypto bull market and the summer that maybe we have now recently entered, Raul, I'm curious on this word debasement, because that is always looming in the background from a macro perspective, and the birth of Bitcoin was sort of based on the debasement story. I saw a tweet you recently put out. While everyone is worried about 3.5% inflation, which is our current inflation rate, the real issue is the ongoing 8% per annum debasement of currency on top of inflation. Here's the kicker. Your hurdle rate to break even is around 12%. What do you mean
Correct.
by hurdle rate? Does that mean like the amount that I have to earn in the market with my investments in order to not get debased?
So let's first understand what debasement does. Debasement of fiat currency overall, so I'm using a global liquidity index, which is the 8%, means that as the central banks create more fiat currency, assets optically rise, particularly US assets, because it's the US dollar as the global reserve system. However, variable income doesn't go up. Fixed scarce assets go up. So scarce assets go up versus your wages. Prices go up versus earnings. P ratios go up. Once you understand this, you stop fighting P ratios and saying the market's expensive. No, it's debasement. It pushes up the P and keeps the E growing roughly in line with the economy.
Hmm.
That's the difference. So when you understand that what they are doing here is essentially creating liquidity to buy the government bonds to finance the deficits. That's what they're all doing. That is at 8% a year and has been ongoing since 2008. It was basically agreement amongst all the central banks that the only way out of this is this whole everything code thesis that I've been working through, is that the only way out of this was to use liquidity from the central banks to finance the governments. You now hear a new word, which is really the everything code, but there's a new fancy expression called fiscal dominance, which means central banks become more attuned to helping the government finance their deficits than they are about unemployment and inflation. Fiscal dominance is a fancy word for the everything code, which is let's debase the currency to pay the bills.
They used to call that MMT. Do they not call that MMT
There's
anymore?
another way of, MMT is kind of another way of doing it. It's all the same thing, is I'm going to magic money to pay my bills. Now, if we could all do that, we'd do that too. You can't help yourself. You can't
Sounds
help
nice.
yourself if you've got the magic printer button. You can't. So that's the 8%. So your wages aren't going up as much as asset prices are rising. So why does that matter? Well, what is an asset? An asset is a vehicle for your future consumption. You've deferred your consumption today to be able to use that money in the future. Now, why we invest is we take on a bit of extra risk to make that money worth more than it would have been, because we're taking the risk of locking up our money in an investment for a long period of time. We need to get paid for it. Okay. And then you add in the generalized inflation rate. I took like global inflation is maybe 4%. So that gives you this 12% hurdle rate. Okay, that's fine. What is the return of the S&P 500 annualized since 2012? 12%. And I've shown these charts over and over again. Divided by the balance sheet, none of these assets have gone anywhere. There's only two assets in the world that have gone anywhere: technology stocks, which are 17% a year. But even if you pay taxes on capital gains, you're probably just about breaking even. On the S&P, you're actually negative. Then you've got crypto, which is like an alien asset class that does something like 175% a year. If you're taking ETH as your benchmark, 175% a year, including down 80% markets. So that's how you get to this understanding of debasement. What you're trying to do is make sure your future self thanks you for the decisions you make today.
Is that
But
kind of
every time you try and buy something, it's now getting more expensive versus your wages. So many people of your age are seeing this with housing. It's like, fuck, how are we ever supposed to do that? That whole equation of the mismatch of asset prices, which is your future self, and where you are today is what's driving the speculation economy. So US citizens spent $108 billion on lottery tickets last year. $108 billion. It's a 1 in 300 million probability of winning the big lottery. And maybe winning $1 million is, I don't know the actual odds, but let's call it 1 in 50 million. Okay, you can take those odds, or you can go to the meme coin casino of the Wild West, and you will get better odds. And that's what people have done. They've done it with single day options in tech stocks. They've done it with options in general. And they've done it with crypto. And it's much easier to speculate in something that has a trend as opposed to a random distribution. Right? So if it's trending, even if you buy generalized shit, you can make money in crypto at this point. Right? That's not an endorsement for that at all. It's an endorsement for the speculative behavior because they don't get a chance. And this is what people also don't understand is, okay, so we try and educate them. Say, listen, if you want, just buy some Bitcoin or some ETH. Let's use Bitcoin as easy numbers. So they've got 10 grand in savings. They can't buy a house. They can't make a deposit. They can't do any of it. So then they look at Bitcoin and say, where do you think Bitcoin's going to go? $1 million. Okay, that's a 14x. My 140 grand in 5 years' time probably still won't get me the deposit on a house. So what do? They look for bigger risk rewards. And they're not given the tools because a lot of people are new investors. They don't really know. And this is one of the things that, you guys do and we do at Real Vision is really try and say, okay, if you're going to speculate, you're going to take more risk. We're not going to judge you for it, but we're going to try and help you do it. And this is this whole "don't fuck this up" thesis that I've got on my T-shirt. The whole thing is,
what is that thesis?
So "don't fuck this up" is something that's actually been now trending all over Twitter. In fact, somebody's even started a meme coin completely against the idea of this. So "don't fuck this up" is like, this is the biggest gift, the biggest macro opportunity of all time, right? It's been ongoing really since like 2010, but investably for most of us, 2013 or so. This is the biggest thing of all time.
What is specifically like
crypto? Investing in
okay.
crypto is the fastest adoption of any technology the world has ever seen, except for AI that's just come. The fastest accumulation in value of any asset class in all recorded history. The fastest growth of number of users, i.e. adoption of any asset class in history. The largest price appreciation in returns of any asset class in history, right? This thing is an alien. And it is the biggest gift to people. And I've talked about this for almost a decade now. Oh, from a decade from when we started Real Vision. This is an absolute fucking gift. So what are you supposed to do to take the gift? Don't fuck it up. And what that means is own the large crypto that have proven network effects. There are only 3 with network effects right now that are fully proven out. Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana has come into that fray and has got provable network effects. There are many others that have some elements of network effects that are slightly lower down. Okay, but let's assume you could put your money in those 3, you'll be fine. Put 90% of your assets there. They will go up well. If you did an equally weighted basket, you'll do very well, thank you very much. 10%, feed you in a degen, do what the fuck you want.
Bitcoins.
And you will learn very quickly, like all of us have, you will end up with a wallet of shame in 2026. And you'll look at it and go, really? Did I own that shit? But you'll have had fun doing it. You'll have learned a bunch of lessons. And who knows, you might get the 100x. You probably won't. You'll see somebody on Twitter getting it and you'll think it can be me, and you'll do the rotations at the wrong time. But this way, you get to participate in the madness because it's kind of fun. But what can you lose? 10%. What's the rest of your portfolio going to do? 5x? You'll be fine. So don't fuck this up is one. Secondly, don't use leverage. Leverage is just a way of you to have your coins taken away from you. Your one job is not to lose your coins. Right? You just hold them for the longest period of time, the more money you will make over time. So just don't let anybody have your coins. That's why I don't use DeFi. Anything that is involving yield is taking an extra risk. Staking is different. You've got the currency risk in staking, which is your ETH goes down or your SOL goes down or whatever it is. But I assume people are prepared to do that because they're already in those assets anyway. But once you start getting to restaking or all sorts of different stuff, you're assuming a different risk from the market in which you may have to part with your coins. That is rule number one. Don't park with your coins. Do that in your 10% bucket. If you want to play around with DeFi, do that. But just don't part with your coins. This was the same thing about what happened with all the sexes and the centralized exchanges, what happened with everything is that. The other thing is self-custody. At worst, leave it on Coinbase. It's a government monopoly. But at best, self-custody. Don't part with your coins. I've had money in MF Global when that blew up as a bank. I lost all of my investments. And it took 7 years of court cases to get them back. And everyone's going through that now in crypto. Don't lose your coins. So it's pretty simple. That's the don't fuck this up thesis. It's like hashtag DTFU. And people resonate because so many people fucked it up last time around.
Yeah, I think that is incredibly, let me just plus one, that is incredibly practical advice. And I think you're right in terms of, especially first and second cyclers, they need some portion of their portfolio to play the games. It almost sounds like a sex ed type class, right? This is the reason abstinence never works. You got to teach them kind of safe investing, basically. And that's what we're talking about here. In these cycles.
If you enjoyed all of that, then you'll absolutely love the Bankless newsletter. Join over 300,000 fellow readers, all for free. Click below to sign up.